Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bar Podcast. Brandon,
How you doing?
good to see you, man.
It's good to see you. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Please excuse me if I cough a few times during this one, but I'm back in it. But I am really super excited about today. Today is a one that I've been wanting to do since we began this podcast with my good friend Jake Gilbert from Westfield. Man, we are excited
home
to
of the
have you, Jake.
Shamrocks.
Home of the Shamrocks.
Excited to be here.
Right.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, but before we get going, Jake, usually what we do is during the podcast, Building a Refuge, we talk about men's mental health. Sometimes we get into some difficult conversations, so we want to have some resources for the guys to where they can go to during the podcast if they need some assistance. So the first one is being able to text the word refuge to 494949.
Yep.
You can also text the National Suicide Hotline at 838-255 or dial it at 988.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
a good
also
one.
for our veterans out there, thank you for your service.
Yep.
We also have a veterans hotline that's 1-800-273-8255.
I'm glad you look at those too, because every time I do this, I have to look at
I got to
them.
look at them.
Yeah.
It's too many numbers.
I can't memorize that much stuff. I'm not a smart guy.
Wait, so I'll put this away now. Way too many
You're
numbers.
going to bring that out at the end again, though.
I will. Yeah, I will. So, Jake, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is a good day for me because I know you and I have had many, many conversations going back, I think, to like 2017, 2018
Right on.
Yeah, it's been a while.
time frame, just about mental health and working with men and also, and we'll get into your story, obviously. But you and I met through a good friend of ours, Mike Rekoff, who's been on this podcast before. And
Shout out to Mike.
a mentor for Brandon and I. And it's a good full circle moment right now. So I really do appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, it's great to be on, and appreciate everything you've done for me. You've been a great resource for me and a great friend. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. Well, let's get into it. Let's jump right into it and just start talking a little bit about maybe your upbringing. I know you're an Indianapolis guy.
Sure, yeah.
A Ben Davis Giant, right?
Right, yeah.
But, just give us a little background, get us started.
Grew up in Indianapolis, so I kind of raised by a pack of wolves type of person. So ultimately settled on the near west side. Never had known or met my father, so I was a fatherless kid.
Okay.
My mom was in prison a lot and was pretty unfit. So I would stay with her at times in the inner city of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So I had kind of a dual life going on. I would stay in Hallville. So some people know Hallville. Yeah,
16th Street.
We were
Yep. I see Mike over there. Mike doesn't have a mic on, but he's saying, I don't know where it's at.
yeah. So we lived in at times on Hall Street. You're deep in Hallville when you're on Hall Street. So we lived around Tech, but it was we moved a lot and we were very, very poor. Stand in line to eat mice and roaches type of poor. So it was I experienced that. I lived with a black family. So I was really the only white kid in Hallville. So shaped a lot of my understanding of the world. But then ultimately I moved in with my grandparents. I really had an uncle who was kind of that champion in my family, champion of my life, who essentially kidnapped me from my mom in a way, truthfully, and then took me to my grandma and grandpa's. So he was in his 20s, young single guy, and just took a stand and took me. And ended up living with my grandparents, which worked out great because I was able to go to Wayne Township schools and had a much better life. So it turned out to be the kind of situation where I would stay with my mom at times, but I lived with my grandparents during the school year and ultimately went to Ben Davis High School. I met Dick Dullahan was my high school football coach.
Yeah, right on.
And he was extremely instrumental in my life. He really breathed confidence into me, which was much needed.
Yeah.
And the inspiration that I guess he gave me, a lot of it just stemmed from the relationship. If he was a swimming coach, I probably would have loved swimming.
Yeah.
If he was
That's awesome.
a business guy, I probably would have loved business. But it was more about how he treated me and encouraged me and gave me a broader vision for myself and really, I think made me believe that I could I could do better than my circumstances.
Yeah.
And so he just gave me a broader vision for who I could become, and lo and behold, I became a football coach.
Yeah.
And so he had a lot to do with that. But Coach Dullahan, my Uncle Jim, and my grandmother were three very instrumental people in my life who I think really set the bar for what my character became and who I admired and who I became. So it was good. Went to Wabash College and was probably a better college student than a high school student.
Yeah.
I think I did well in high school, but not because I worked at it. But Wabash, again, kind of expanded my vision for who I could be, maybe academically. So I loved football. I went to college to play football.
Yeah, so you probably played football at Wabash.
I did. I loved football. I started playing when I was 6.
Yeah.
And, I've been on football fields for 41 years in a row. But I think Wabash, I was immersed in a new pool of people.
Sure.
Success-driven people, serious people, disciplined people. And I was probably more like them than probably who I ran with growing up.
Sure.
And that was good for me, though, and I realized I could lean into that side of myself. And I wanted to be a special, impactful person, but I think at Wabash I was surrounded by a lot of guys who were on that path. And so I set off after that, got my first job. I was an assistant coach for a couple of years and became a head coach at the ripe old age of 24.
Nice.
And didn't know what I didn't
Three
know.
to the wolves, man, right? Yeah.
So jumped right in. I became the head coach at North Montgomery High School, and at that point I was just, I was a government teacher and a head football coach. I did that there for 6 years. I went back to school, so to speak, and became a college coach. I never wanted to be a college coach, but there was a man back at Wabash College named Chris Creighton who became a mentor for me as well. And the reason I coached college football was more so because I wanted to learn from him. So, again, never having a father, here was a guy who was a sold-out Christian, who was a great husband, a great father, and his football teams rocked. And I just didn't think you could do all those things. Yeah. And so I really wasn't raised in the faith. We never prayed. We didn't read the Bible. The Lord kind of called me into the church as a young kid, and I would walk down the street and go to the church by myself. And it was so confusing and so intimidating, and I didn't have anyone I could ask. I had no idea what they were talking about. And, if you don't have direction, to try to understand the Trinity or grace, some of these concepts. But I went because I felt like I was supposed to be there. Yeah. And my family didn't stop me. They didn't necessarily encourage me, but they didn't stop me either. Yeah. And I would start to go to church with friends. But I really became a Christian man, I believe, when I got out of college. My wife and I became serious. I wanted to be the best man I could be for her. I wanted to be the best man I can for me. But I realized I was like an infant as a Christian. Yeah. And I spent 2 years at Ben Davis around Tom Allen, who's now the head football coach at Indiana University, and he was the real deal spiritually. Yeah, right on. Yeah. And just hit different with that guy. He was different than all the guys on the staff, and it made me start to ask questions. And really, he was the first Christian man I was around on a day-to-day basis. And that set off a path of growth. Well, then, I guess, 6, 8 years later, I went to work for Chris Creighton because we were going to have our son. And, we did have our son. And I wasn't panicked, but I was scared.
I bet so.
How to be a father. Yeah. I had no example of that, and I didn't know. And most of the kids I grew up, a lot of them didn't have fathers. So I didn't, I didn't really know what to do. Again, I wanted to be a great football coach, but I wasn't really sure you could do that and be a Christian, because I thought you were supposed to coach with some level of intensity, and that didn't really work out with this soft Christian male persona. Yeah. I thought if you were going to be a Christian, you'd be like Ned Flanders. and some sappy self-Christian guy.
Yeah.
But I wanted to coach football.
How you guys doing today?
Exactly. Heidi ho, neighbor. Maybe we can play a little football here today. And I just didn't think those things were going to work together.
Yeah.
But Chris showed me at Wabash, like, oh man, this guy is like a warrior out here, and he's sold out to his faith. He's sold out to his family. But then his teams brought it.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. And so I went to work for him.
Yeah.
And that was more,
that
was less about wanting to be a
that probably was
college
an
coach.
eye-opener, right? I mean,
completely.
Just to be
every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And he hired like-minded guys on staff, and that enabled me to learn from so many men who had their priorities right. And this was really important for me. So maybe I said my purpose was to be impactful, make a difference. But, my passions were probably about winning and football. And sometimes if you don't get it right, your passions lead your purpose. And that's probably how I had coached. Like, hey, I want to make a difference. I want to impact your life as long as we're winning football games.
Right.
But that's going to be the priority. And I think seeing it done differently, where it was like, no, we're going to honor Christ. We are going to make a difference in the lives of these kids. We're going to love these players. And then hopefully along the way, we're going to win.
We're winning some football games.
And we're going to coach football. But our purpose is first. Well, my purpose is to love, lead, and impact people. And I really want to be this Christ-centered leader. But I don't know that I always was doing it in the right order.
Yeah.
I think I was around some guys when I went to Wabash that showed me how it can be done. And then that set me up to come back to high school. So it was almost like I got my doctorate in football. I also learned from one of the best leaders out there about how to lead as a Christian coach or a Christian anything versus a coach who happens to be a Christian. And then we came to Westfield, and it was just totally a God thing how all those things came together, and we can get in that story if you want. But we came to Westfield, and gosh, his blessing has been abundant.
Yeah.
And we have been used in the community in a variety of ways, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But it's been a blessing, and now we've been there 12 years, so we're going on year
awesome.
13.
Yeah.
So one of the things that intrigued me about your story that you just said was when you were a little boy, you went to church on your own. What do you think led you there? Like what?
Yeah, I don't know. Like my mom was spiritual, I'd call it. So my mom would talk about faith or religion or God or Jesus, but she was also kind of spiritual in terms of like astrology and Native Americans and stuff. And there's a grab bag of spirituality.
Sure.
But she promoted a spiritual nature.
Yeah.
And enlightenment of some sort. Just no one ever sat down with me and was like, Jesus Christ died for your sins.
Yeah.
One time.
Romans 10:9. It was never brought to me that if you, confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, that you shall be saved. I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what saving.
I don't think anybody. I mean,
saving
most people
from
did.
what?
Yeah.
I just wasn't raised to have any understanding.
Yeah.
But I do believe. Maybe I wasn't encouraged to go to church, but again, I wasn't stopped, and so I felt like there was a feeling of, hey, if you're a good person and you go down there every once in a while, maybe you can make it to heaven. But I never had any family members go with me.
Yeah.
But I did go with some friends sometimes.
That's
so initially I just felt called to go there. I don't know how else to explain it. There was two churches actually at the end of our street, and I didn't know what went on.
Was this when you lived in Ben Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't know what went on down there, and no one else seemed to know either, but I just went a couple times, and the people were very nice to me.
Yeah.
And I just felt like maybe I was supposed to be there. Maybe I had an aunt who had married into the family, and a friend of hers gave me a Bible. And I remember the Gideons came to school in 4th grade and handed out Bibles. And I had that pocket Bible from the Gideons in 4th grade.
Yeah, right.
And I just started to read it. And I think God revealed the amount of truth I could handle.
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure.
So again, because I was like an infant. But yeah, the Gideons came to school in 4th grade, handed me that Bible, and I started to read it. And that's probably what the combination of all those factors, I'll go to church. And
it's fascinating, Jake. I didn't know that about you. Erik has mentioned in many conversations about everything you guys have talked about in the past and your relationship, and I didn't know anything of your past and your upbringing. But I mean, it's amazing when you think about you growing up in the environment you did, and even to when you got to your teenage years. And we can see this now, right? If you zoom out, we have a friend of ours, our pastor, Rusty Kennedy, that always has a good way of telling us to zoom out and look at things, right? And if you zoom out of that, man, like your faith, even as a naive Christian, as you mentioned, your faith was leading you. It's crazy. It's wild, man. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I think, sometimes you look out the side window and you can't quite see exactly where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like he's been in control the whole time. It's hard for me to attribute anything to really myself.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things I've certainly done well, and I'll give you that. But I've also made so many mistakes.
Well,
that could have derailed the whole path, and should have. Think of how many near misses there have been, and so for any good that we've done or whatever, I just truly believe that God has really been in control the whole time, and every turn, like going to Wabash, going to Westwood, I can tell you kind of how that happened, and I tried to screw it up. And he wouldn't let me.
Oh, yeah.
And lo and behold, here we are. And, just really been honored to be a part of so many things. Yeah. But I do believe even before I really knew, he was just kind of in control and at the right pace for me.
Yeah.
So here we are.
It's interesting because there's a common theme with everybody we have on this show. And what we have talked about a lot is not only talking about the hope piece after struggle, but it's also that beginning stage of where you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Like you made a decision as a young child to walk down the street to go to church. You made a decision to go be with those coaches that you saw something in.
Yeah.
You made that decision. And so the guys that are out there who are struggling and the audience that we talk with on a monthly basis at our meetings, like that's what we ask of them is, you can't just expect things to just come your way. You have to make a decision. Yeah. Like you're saying, you feel like you were led by the Spirit to go to these people. It's because you saw that in those guys that you really wanted. You're like, I want to be a part of that. Whatever that is, I want to go be a part of it.
I do believe that, I maybe it was Coach Delahan and the whole, like, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to what happens to you. And a lot of people do real well with the E+R=O now and the discipline of response and habits and all those things. We preach all that a lot. I think in my circumstances, I lived in the midst of a lot of just unhappiness, poverty,
uncertainty,
tragedy.
Yeah.
A lot of people died early. A lot of people was around a lot of drugs and alcohol and rehab, and my family and my friends' families, it was all the same too. I mean, so it was just the norm. And I do believe that I wanted something more for that than my son, for my children, or myself even. And so I think there was a part of me like, well, what's missing? Well, no one seemed to really have this relationship with Jesus. And so I thought, well, then maybe I need to pursue that, to be different. So I loved my neighborhood and I loved my friends. I wanted to be a part of that. But at the same time, I wanted to be a help to all of them. Yeah. It's not that I wanted to escape them. I wanted to do well for them. And the part that they were not engaged in was anything faith-based. I think that became a differentiator for me. But I didn't do that in a way to judge them per se. I wanted to help. I wanted to make them proud.
Yeah.
I loved my people, my West Side family and all that, for all my friends. But I wanted to do well, and I had goals and aspirations and all this. And I do think that my faith became somewhat of a differentiator, and I leaned into it more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's fascinating, man, and I think it's really, really cool that you see it that way, and you saw it that way even back then, right? I mean, knowing Indianapolis, and I mean, I moved here when I was 10 years old, and as I grew up through my teenage years, we you grow up on the West Side, right? So you know the area, and the area where you grew up, and it's not an easy area, man, especially as a young white kid. I'll put it that way, because it's a different area of town, right? I mean, it's just not. It couldn't have been.
My kids couldn't last 5 minutes over there.
Yeah, I mean, but it's real though, man. I think it's cool, Jake, that like you share that perspective, because you think about what we do here at Building a Refuge, and just being honest about pressures and honest about challenges and things like that. I mean, I can imagine you had a lot of pressures and challenges growing up in that area.
Yeah, especially just drugs and crime, and to continually say no to that in the beginning was really tough. I totally think, again, that was a God thing. Down the road, when people started to fizzle out and get cracked out, like most of my friends, the crack epidemic at that time
it was real.
Was real, and a lot of my friends struggled, and it did eventually get to a point where they no longer tried to peer pressure me into it. They wanted me to stay away from it, because they felt like you got a chance to do something bigger. And, so it was really interesting how that all turned out. But again, I'm still friends with
That's
all these
man.
people. I've always had multiple facets of my life that don't necessarily always intersect.
Yeah.
But I love lots of different. I think I relate to a lot of different types of people because of that.
But I think your faith as well, right? Your Christian relationship that you have with Christ. One of the things, like you and I talked a little bit about this before we even started recording today. Is we don't pronounce anything here at Building a Refuge like a person has to do one thing or another. But what we don't do is we don't shy away from it, right? I mean, and I think that these stories are so impactful. Because, I mean, I think in terms of where your heart was at then and where your heart is at today is no different than what he leads us to do every day. And that's just love everybody, right? Love everybody and believe in him. And so it's really easy for you to like, man, I can feel it on you. You're caring, and you're like, I'm still good friends with all my friends back then. And like, you care about them, you know what I mean? You genuinely love them, right? I mean, and it's not hard when you have that in your heart. I mean, I know it. I mean, I feel it every day.
That's a great lead in to talking about what you're doing at Westfield High School. Cause there's two aspects, right? There's what you do in your day-to-day career, and then there's the football side. And I'd love for you to discuss with the audience like what you're doing on both aspects.
Yeah, we've been involved in a lot of things in Westfield, and I don't want it to be like a balance. I want it to be a blend. Like this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I care about these things, and some of these things are going to interlap a little bit, and people have accepted that out of me, thank goodness, because I'm a little more than sometimes you get typecast as a football coach. Like you're what's the old coach know about this or that? But I've tried to just be more than that, as a way to serve more people.
Yeah.
But we were hired to teach and coach, and we came to do that. We've been there for 12 years. I was originally a government teacher. I've had two goals in life. And that's really the only two things I have ever wanted to do, was be the best football coach, best high school football coach in Indiana, and to be president of the United States. Those
there you go.
Only two things I've ever been interested in. So
I love that, man.
These two goals, and I felt like to validate being the best coach, like you had to win a state championship. So even when I went to college to coach football, I kind of wanted to come back again because of unfinished business and wanted to win a state title and do some of those things and lead a community to that. Well, we've been really blessed, had a lot of success on the football end, and gosh, we have like 800 kids play football in Westfield.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm honored to be a part of the leadership of all of that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but let them know what you started with. Like,
well,
give them. You're going to be humble, and tell them what you went from and what you got to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a great job. We were the smallest school in 5A. We were the smallest school in our conference. We were the smallest school in our sectional. And I think there had only been one winning season in 20 years.
Okay.
The coach before me, God bless him, he just had to deal with the growth.
Sure.
Westfield had been a tiny school and overnight became a big school. But it doesn't happen like
Right.
your systems and how you do things, you don't necessarily grow at the same time. So maybe there were a big school in number, but not necessarily a big school in the way they did things. So I was really brought in to bring Westfield into an era of doing things in a big school way in football, and we managed to do so. And so we've had some success and managed to go to the state championship 4 times in the last 10 years, and I think we're 32-8 in the last 3 years, and so we've really been blessed.
Yeah,
that was
congratulations
a pipe
on
dream
that, man.
years
Yeah,
ago.
no, it's
Our first year, we went 5 and 6, and they wanted to like throw a parade, and I was just like, "We're terrible. Did you come to the games? We got killed out there." But they were like, "Oh, we're so much better, so much more competitive," and I was like, "Gosh, what are these people going to think when we actually get good around here?" But we, the kids were always great, and we just needed time to grow up and really learn how to do things and just put in enough effort and hours to be good. It just takes a long time.
yeah.
And, by year 3, we found our way and kind of turned it. And, ever since, the culture's been pretty good. The results have not always been good. We've had losing seasons too, but we're doing pretty well now, and I'm blessed to be there.
You certainly have been in a competitive arena, though. So I mean,
we play.
I mean, in the conference wise, I mean, we
Great.
all
like
know
last year
where
we
you
played
play.
New
So
Pal and Carmel,
Yeah.
and like the last few years, our only losses are to Center Grove twice, Cathedral twice, Brownsburg once,
yeah,
Southeastern twice. I mean, good schools.
yeah, yeah.
So we play some.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not little sisters of the poor out
that's
there.
right.
So.
But you mentioned culture, and that's one of the things when I hear about Westfield football, that's what I hear. I hear, we won a state championship, but I hear culture. I hear,
We've been very fortunate. I think culture is like your shared beliefs and experiences and behaviors, and so a lot of times people think they have culture because they put it on the back of their T-shirt like there's several programs that say the word family, and sometimes I get mad about that. Like, then do it. Because I don't want it to cheapen what we say. I don't want some new person here like, "Oh, family." Yeah, we hear a lot of people do that or say that, and I'm like, no,
And water it down.
no, like the behaviors. So we're an outwork and outlive culture, and so we really want this humility and hunger in our program to where we are willing to love each other and love ourselves and love football enough that we'll put in this exorbitant amount of work for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a humility to understand, like, we are growing and improving, and we need to do so. And so we will get to work with each other until we've reached our goals. And so that's just kind of who we are, and we're real clear on the behaviors that is, which could be like, hey, take that young guy under your wing, or give this kid a ride home. You take that guy out to lunch, or just sit here and listen and have a conversation with a guy. So many people think it's about the plays you call and all that bull crap. It has very little to do with our success. I mean, it's important, and we study football, and you should expect your football coach to understand X's and O's.
Yeah.
But the reason we've had any success is because our kids truly love each other and have put in time with each other and care about each other and have put in all this work. And I'm not some genius in football at all. Other coaches would quickly tell you that. Like, they're not great at what they do, and that guy doesn't necessarily know football any better than anybody else. But I do believe our kids have worked hard, and I do believe that our kids love each other. And we demand that, and we are now developing our kids more and more. We start from kindergarten, and this senior class, they were in flag football when I got here. I know.
Yeah, that's great,
so
right?
I remember that first year when we went out there, and like my own kid was in the wrong huddle half the time in flag football, and I'm like, I'd say to my wife, like, these people hired us. They think I actually know what I'm doing. My own kid, like we first got here, my wife sent my oldest son out to practice. Shoulder pads are on backwards. I'm like, honey, they think we know football. You can't do that. And then my middle son, flag football, he's not even in the right huddle. I just keep hearing them saying, hey, over here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're getting fired. But they stuck with us. And over time, so now these kids this is the first group that we've had literally the entire way. And I'm so excited to coach them.
Yeah,
but our culture is one of a family and commitment. And, I think our actions, hopefully, and behaviors back that up.
Yeah. I witnessed it firsthand, and it was impressive. Jake invited me to come, 18 or 19, I can't remember. It was before the pandemic, whatever. But he invited me to come to a father-son chili cook-off.
Yeah, right on.
That they have. And let me paint this picture. We're in a high school cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
And he sets me right in the middle of all of them. and so I'm walking around, and I'm looking, and he plants me right in the middle of them. And he stood up, and I'm not kidding. He didn't say a word. When he stood up, the parents are talking, the kids are talking all over the place. He stood up, and everybody just went silent. I'm serious.
I believe that.
He commanded that attention.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're going to treat our speaker with respect, and you're going to listen to what he has to say. And those kids and those dads were locked on me that whole time. Yeah. And I felt that love, like when I was in that environment. So I felt it firsthand, and I saw it, and I was impressed. And whatever you're doing, the magic sauce, like we say, what we say, what we're doing is not rocket science. And what you're doing is not rocket science. You're just loving each other. Yeah. And you're just being there for each other.
Sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, leading people is no matter what vertical you're in your case, Jake, you're in the education field and, kind of from a sports perspective, right? The football space. But, leading people, no matter what you go into, and you could probably look across all kinds of different leaders, great leaders. It's about leading people, and it's about, building that confidence up. It's about earning their trust. For one, that's one big one for me. I mean, I've led a ton of sales teams in the past, and one of my big passions is you got to earn their trust. Somebody once told me you're not a great leader because you get too close to your people. And I probably call bullshit on it. But I just was like, I don't believe in that. I said, the only way for me to earn their trust is to get to know them and get to know them personally.
Yeah.
And I just think that goes a long way with anybody. That's one of the big reasons we love doing this. I mean, we feel so blessed to be able to not only do it here in at LDR Studios and these fantastic folks that help us out with this, but all the stories that we get to hear. I mean, we have a passion for it, and I think that's one of the great things is you can learn something from everybody. And I mean, I'm sure you've probably learned things from your kids. You're like, wow.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of times, and you said this a minute ago, like football coaches, I remember I've had a few football coaches in my life in high school, and then they were that side of kind of the rough, they were pretty tough on kids, you know what I mean? And you kind of had that sense like, I can't talk to him. You know what I mean? And I don't get that from you one bit. And I know Erik knows you, a lot better than I do, but just listening to you here and knowing and reading, obviously I live in the community, so I know what's going on in Westfield, and my niece and nephew went to Westfield. So we just want like authenticity.
Yeah. Like, just be real.
Yeah.
So good, bad, or indifferent. No one's acting like we're perfect, starting with me. And so there's no weakness in just being honest and real with all of us. And so I can be tough, and so can some other coaches on our team, but I'm real about it.
Yeah.
And but I also can be loving, and they don't feel like they're being weak if they come to us, because they know we love them. Like that's a non-negotiable to coach.
Yeah.
You don't have to believe what I believe to coach at Westfield.
Yeah.
But you got to love kids.
Yeah.
Like that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, absolutely,
and
man.
That to me means like we're going to be just open to them. We're going to be honest. We are going to push them hard and work them hard. I'm honest about that.
Sure.
But authentically, we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to be honest and upfront with you. We expect the same thing back. And we always want to be the kind of people you can come to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
You had mentioned, you don't want to take off one hat and put on another hat. You want them to mesh. And I think you and I have also had experiences within the school. I've had an opportunity to meet with you at school and sit down and talk to you in your environment at school. And so I know it's not just the football guys that you love. It's those kids in that school. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about your role in school and what you're doing there.
Well, I think football is just because we've done okay. I think that's just given us a bigger platform.
Sure.
And I've tried to use that. So instead of trying to parlay that into going back to college football or chasing a bag and cashing in and all that stuff, I've tried to parlay that into more impact and influence in our community. And my role in the community's changed continually. I've been a president of the Wellbeing Coalition of Westfield. That's a nonprofit and mental health is an enormous component of that. We connect people to people, we connect people to resources, and we serve in the mental health space. I'm on the Heart and Soul board to try to help communities who need physical health, and now we provide mental health as well.
Yeah.
And then within the school, I've become the Dean of Wellness. I am essentially in charge of really the mental and physical health of our student body and just helping connect kids to the resources they need. I'm not a mental health professional. We do have mental health professionals. This year we'll have a social worker for the first time. We have resources in place. I'm not necessarily the resource, but I'm the kid person. And they, sometimes kids that don't know and trust the resource know and trust me. And they come to me and I get them connected. Or, what skills do we need to put into our student body? So from a mental health standpoint, people talk about resiliency skills and the grit that it takes to be overcome adversity so that when they do get into the world and they find out like, oh, this is a lot tougher than living at home, do they have the skills to persist through that and make it versus, crisis of depression and anxiety and stress? How can we serve them in those ways? So we do that really. I'm in charge of that curriculum for our school, where we teach certain things like kindness and service and confidence and discipline and grit and initiative. A lot of that comes through my programming, and we teach that to juniors in a leadership class that I teach. As seniors, then they become mentors for our freshmen.
That's
and
great.
They teach that peer-to-peer to freshmen, and then we teach it, program it out to the whole school.
Yeah.
And then I've served on the Westfield City Council, and I've kind of been, I think my role, a lot of it has been this community guy who's willing to walk door to door in trailer parks and hand out resources or understand the mental health needs of our community.
Yep.
I'm not the business guy. We have those people, thank goodness. I mean, it's an important part of running a city.
Yeah.
That just hasn't per se been my role.
Yeah.
I ran for mayor, lost. So I learned a lot, worked really hard, came up a little bit short, like 2%. So it was very close. But hopefully the way we ran our campaign, only gave us an even more solid foundation to serve the community. I love Westfield. I hope the mayor-elect Scott Willis does a great job. I hope the city's in even better hands. I hope the new council does a wonderful job because I love our city.
Yeah.
And whatever role I have, I'll gladly serve humbly whatever role the Lord has for me.
Yep.
And so there's been all these different roles and hats that have happened in this city that, shoot, if we wouldn't have come there to coach football all those years ago,
Right.
we never would have explored and had. And I'm just grateful, man.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful. And sometimes that's one kid at a time or one person at a time. But I do believe that I've been taken out of just the kid space into the adult space to serve our community through local government or nonprofits. And that's been an awesome part of the experience.
Yeah.
So what are some, or are there, do you see differences when you're communicating with the kids and the adults? Where are the differences?
Yeah, I think that, Gen Z right now,
Yeah.
I think they're a little more open with how they feel about things and a little more explicit about it, and will tell you if you'll listen. Ultimately, I think everybody really wants to tell their story.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think adults are maybe a little more cynical and reserved at times, as in, is this a safe opportunity? I don't want to get fired. I don't want to be looked down upon. I don't want to be perceived as weak. And, or can I trust you?
Right.
So that part's a little bit different. Kids learning how to communicate with kids is different.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up with the importance of eye contact, for example.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we didn't grow up staring at a screen all day.
Right.
So eye contact, I don't think is important as important to my sons.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel disrespected because my son's looking around and I'm like, hey, look at me. Well, I don't think he feels disrespected if I don't look at him, though.
Right.
And so
that's interesting.
There's difference. How we handle respect and things like that. And I think learning, they're smarter than we were at that age.
Yeah.
They probably know more, but then they've probably had less real world experience than we had at that age.
Yeah.
And so how to value each other, and I grew up, so my grandfather, no one had went to college, only my grandma had actually graduated from high school. She was the first one to graduate from high school. But my grandpa would look at me if I brought home, like no one had any idea how well I did in school. So I brought home an A on a math test or something. No one cared about that. But my grandpa would say, "You're telling me you don't know how to change brakes on your own car?" He couldn't understand value outside of work because he grew up and ran away from home at age 12, and he was tough. So he got me a job when I was 12, handling the farm. And at age 14, I worked for Steak and Shake, and I always just worked because that's what we valued. But he only saw value in a man as how much I could work. So education for him and sports seemed frivolous because they weren't bringing any money.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes I've found value in education and sports, which was the opposite of what he did. Okay. I still worked hard. I still had jobs, all those things. I think sometimes zoom out, to use your phrase.
Yep.
What I value as a man maybe is going to be different than what these kids these age do.
Yeah.
And so I just need to have a little more of a different perspective at times and just communicate through it.
Yeah.
And hear their side a little bit. So
Jake,
I think
what have
there
you
is
done?
a difference.
What have you
adults and
done?
kids
That's a
that
great
way.
point. Like, what have you done? Because you've done a lot, for the student body and so on. What are some of the ways that you've been able to go? Like, I'm sure because some of this comes to you afterwards, right? You might have a discussion with somebody or, whatever, and you're like, oh man, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, or what have you. How do you approach that to gain that value of knowledge from them, like getting their perspective, right? Like, how do you do that?
Well, you don't get it if you don't connect with them.
Yeah.
You can't expect anything till you connect. And so I start with how much care do I need to show that person or that kid before I can connect with them, and then I can receive something from them. Knowledge, respect, effort, whatever I'm asking from them.
Yeah.
But it's on me first to extend. They don't come to me out of respect.
Yeah.
I'm going to give respect to get respect. I'm going to show an interest. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to listen. I'm going to care. I'm just going to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And then from that, a relationship's built. And usually they'll do whatever I ask or give me whatever information I want. But it all starts with, do I really connect with them? Am I really willing to put in the time and the relationship versus just tell them what to do?
Yeah. I just think it's really, I think it's very, very, I think it's a great, I don't want to say it's not a tactic, because that's not it. It's you said
That's
this
what
earlier.
you said you do with your
people that you
it's authentic, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it's really cool that you, man, God bless you, man, for you and the school system and where you're at, man, because, you know, I think that school systems today, you know, if they could probably clone you, that'd be a good thing.
No, it would not. There's only.
Well, I mean, seriously,
much
man.
of
I mean,
me is
here's
a
the deal:
bad
when
thing.
you can connect, when you have that skill to connect with, especially, you know, the younger generation today, right? That's a skill, man. And you know, I just know the little bit that I know you and what the stories that you're sharing. You know, I could probably go ask 100 and. Hell, I could probably go ask 500 kids, like, you know, hey, how has Jake impacted you? And probably 500 of those kids are going to give us answers. You know what I mean?
Well, and it goes right back to exactly what we at least try to do with building a refuge is building that trust through relationship.
Yep.
That's right.
And that relationship starts by transparency and honesty from you, from us. And then if you peel back the onion even further, in our faith, we overcome by the blood and by our testimony, right? And so you're using the circumstances that you were given as a young kid. You're using the impact of the coaches that you've dealt with. You're using the impact of the kids that you're now teaching and mentoring to be able to share stories with them. And that's really all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Man, that's all we're trying to do is get people back to community.
Yeah.
And if they could just see that, the guys who are listening, the dads, you know, I mean, if you're a dad and you didn't hear what he just said, then rewind it and listen to it again.
That's
because we as dads, we get going down this rabbit hole, or we get these blinders on that I'm dad and what I say goes. And yes, discipline, yes, but you have to earn respect. You have to gain respect. You have to earn their love through caring. And I think we lose that perspective because we want to be that iron fist, and that's
the way we're brought up.
Well, and that's the whole reason I told you at the very beginning I wanted him on here.
Yeah,
because he brings a unique perspective as a coach, as a former football player, and you even said it. I didn't even have to say it at the beginning. You know, you thought that you couldn't be a coach and be this.
Yeah.
You know, but
Very
once
true.
you found that out, man, like things just flourished. And
once I saw it modeled, then I knew I could do that.
And
that's what we have to do as parents or leaders, period. Like we have to model it. What do you want them to be like? Well, then live it. What you do in moderation, they're going to do in excess. So if your negative behaviors are out there on display and in moderation, they're going to do it in excess. And so you got to be clear and honest about it even when you mess up. But man, how about if you really show your followers or show your kids, like, you can work this hard, you can love this much, you can be this responsible, you can be this accountable, you can care about other people that can do nothing for you. You know, like, that's a lesson I want my kids to get. Why are we doing this? Just because. Because I care about people, not because we're going to gain something from it. That's not our motives, you know, but you can show all those behaviors. I mean, but you better be crystal clear with yourself. You better know what you want out of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? The more you understand your own purpose, the more you understand your own values, then you can live that out instead of just going with the crowd.
Yeah.
And then the more you can find brotherhood and accountability to help you with that.
Yep.
And then that's just foundational for all your relationships.
Absolutely. Well, you've talked a lot about coaching. You've talked a lot about, you know, what you're doing at school right now. I'd like to kind of take a step back and talk about your family now, your sons and your wife, and just give us a little background there. How old are your sons? I don't think we covered that in the beginning. But.
Yeah, I have a son who's a freshman in college, a son who will be a senior in high school, and a son who will be a sophomore. So 3 teenage boys. So we are currently, right now, I think we are 15, 18, and 19.
Yep.
But usually, Usually they're like 2 grades apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My wife and I met when I was going into my senior year in college. I mean, and again, God is in control. I was a different person.
We share similar.
The last thing I was looking for was a girlfriend.
How'd your hair look back then? That's what I wanted.
It was long.
Was it on point?
It was long.
And on
I had
point,
an
right?
earring, and I was wearing a shirt that just said "beer," period. A cut-off shirt. And I'm like, "Hey, you want to go out?" And out of those
Fantastic
beginnings, first date, I didn't even drive. Unbelievable. So, my wife is amazing. I feel like with me, all those different things you can measure, personality or whatever. Like I'm, an 8 on the Enneagram. I'm a challenger. I'm a type A guy. I'm all those different things. Like I like to be in control. Mm-hmm. I like to lead. I want to be fierce. I need to challenge constantly. Well, I can be extra and overdo it at any moment. So I tell people, like, my wife is kind of the governor on that whole thing. Mm-hmm. She is such just a humble person. And so, like, I'm like a lion. What's that mean? I can protect the whole pride as long as she's with me.
Yeah.
But if she's not, I could attack everybody, or like I'm like a fire. I could warm the house.
Yeah.
And I could burn the place down. And I know that. Like I know what resides in me, and which of those sides of you wins of the one you feed. Well, she is like food for my soul to keep me grounded and keep me on the right path, like guardrails. And so even though I'm the leader in our house and the relationship, and I make all the decisions and I lead her all the time out of love. I have a fierce love for her.
Yep.
But she keeps me from going over the cliff.
Yeah.
And people are drawn to me because of that amount of passion I have. But I'm just telling you, without her, I'd probably burn the place down. Mm-hmm. And I needed her in my life, and she was the first woman that really, like, I wanted to be a better man for. And so she and I were maybe in similar spots spiritually and so for us to grow together, I just felt like the closer we grew to God as individuals, the closer we grew to each other, and it worked.
Yeah.
And so we were very good partners. We raised very independent children.
Yeah.
And we have probably not been great parents, but our children though know, like, we love the Lord and we love you, and there's certain things that we're going to demand, and then the rest we're going to let you fail and figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're very independent people. Now again, I grew up essentially without parents.
Yeah.
So I grew up very early, and I was very independent myself. So that's probably where a lot of this comes from.
Yeah.
But I think they'll be ready to be men and lead a family someday, hopefully, if they're so blessed. So our kids have not been babied, but they always know where to find us.
Yeah.
We probably I chose high school football over college football because I did not think I was going to be a great quality father. And if I didn't do it's not football's fault. If I did business, I'd probably travel all the time and win awards and make a lot of money doing that. So I thought I love to work, and so I thought I would not be a great quality. So I wanted to be a quantity father, where I did not travel much because I needed to be in the home every day to catch them at breakfast or catch them at night or catch them. I thought I needed that.
Yeah.
But then when we go on vacation, I'm a quality guy. I do not. My wife could sit on the beach the whole day. I'm playing with my kids constantly.
Yeah.
And so that's how we've tried to do it.
Well,
very proud of my sons.
Yeah. Part of that reason I asked you that is because as you were telling your story growing up and you started talking about fatherhood, I was blessed by having an amazing dad. and I still was terrified out of my skin to become a dad.
Sure.
And so I was thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, so Jake doesn't have that influence, from his biological father, but you had those influences through coaching and some of the people that you met. And it's like, and you spoke to it a little bit about the fact that you didn't feel, or you weren't confident that you were going to be a great father, but you were going to be
for sure
quality, quantity over quality. But
I just knew there were certain things that I could do to break the chains of destruction in my family.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I was at least committed to that. So we were going to have a house where I could lead spiritually. When my son was born, I quit drinking because I just was not going to put him through the torment that I saw at the hands really of alcohol, but even drugs. I wasn't going to bring that to my son. My mom had multiple suicide attempts and just going through the emotions, just a lot of the things that no one even knows or even needs to know. But I was not going to put my son through that. So I didn't know how to lead, but I knew the mistakes I wasn't going to make.
Yep. Yep.
And so above all else, I was going to give it my best shot and try to be a great father. But I knew no way was I going to repeat some of these things that had been cyclical in my family for generations. Mm-hmm. It was going to stop with me. And that commitment I did make. And so the other parts, I've probably been 50-50 on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's regrets and there's other things I did well and all that stuff. But by gosh, the things that I wanted to make sure did not continue into my children stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the part I do think we
did that commitment piece, like not only to your children, but like just for your life in general, did that start at a young age, or was it you can remember seeing that commitment, that chain wasn't going to be broken?
Yeah.
Where did that start?
I think it started young.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that when you were just saying that. I mean, I feel like from you saw that at a pretty young age, and you were saying earlier, like you felt like a naive Christian, but dude, I think the Lord was firmly planted in you at
I think so.
You knew that
because I was a very average kid.
Yeah, but
there was nothing special there, but I think I had a special drive.
Yeah.
Even as an average kid, no one would watch me work as a kid and be like, "Oh man, this guy's like this elite worker or whatever." But I think it was in there.
Yeah,
it just needed pulled out.
Well, it's interesting because we at church or at Bible studies or whatever, we talk about this a lot, man, and it's stopping that cycle. You know what I mean? This is just my personal belief because I have developed a much closer relationship with Christ in the last 8 years since my brother took his life. And, but like you, he was always in my life at a young age. And I always knew in my life, I had a firm goal on what I wanted to be as a man. Like I knew as a young man, I looked up to my grandparents. Both my grandparents were married for 60 plus years. My mom and dad were divorced before I even when I was 2. But now my parents are amazing. Both my mom and my dad are fantastic people. I couldn't give them any more accolades. But I always looked to my grandparents of like, I want to break that record. Like that's what I want. And I'm so blessed. I've been married for 30 years this year, and I'm just grateful.
It's a long time.
I know, man. Right? I mean, and Eric,
you're not even halfway there.
Yeah, no, man. We got the foot on the gas, though, man. We're not going to stop. But I just, I think it's a cool point, though, Jake. I mean, because I think, sometimes when I'm just humbled, man, by your upbringing and the man that you've become today, dude. And I know it's probably hard for someone to tell you that, but if you want to take football away and just look at you as a dad and as a husband and as a man and who you are, like where you came from, you saw that. You saw that like man, I don't want to be this, I want to be that.
But that's who God uses all the time. Every
story
in the
I got
Bible,
goosebumps flying up on me.
Every story in the Bible, he does not call the equipped. He equips the called.
Yeah.
And I did not know that until, years into my journey. But that's the exact kind of person I think he should use, because then I think people could say, gosh, if he could do that out of those circumstances, or for that person with their lack of ability, then he could do it for me, or he could do it for my family, my lineage. And I think you just have to choose to accept that gift from him.
Yeah. And that's very important that you said that, because sometimes we create our own circumstances, and sometimes there's just life circumstances. When you were a kid, you didn't ask for that. In my situation, I created my circumstances. And I think that's important for guys out there to hear, is regardless of what your circumstances are, there is hope on the other end of that
Amen,
thing. And that's what we stress the most. And, as we come to the end of our time, usually what we try to ask our guests is, what really drew you to coming here today? And then ultimately, from a mental health side of things, what would you say to that guy out there who's struggling?
Yeah, so, I just respect what you guys do here so much. I did not set out to get into the mental health space. I feel like it kind of found me in Hamilton County. So, originally I wanted to work. I had in my mind, I wanted to help inner city poor kids, because I was a poor kid and all that stuff. But as I've come out here, I've kind of felt like the amount, like Westfield specifically is like Disneyland. It's the greatest place you could ever live. In this county, right? Hamilton County, what an amazing place. We live in such an incredible area.
Yeah.
But when you really dig in and you're around as many people as I am, the amount of people who are suffering or have suffered, people would be stunned,
shocked
at the amount of kids that we've had who have gone through sexual abuse, mental and physical abuse, people who have struggled with suicide ideation, the amount of suicides we've held off, the mental health trauma. I mean, I have had to physically pull kids out from under their bed or out from a car. I've just seen it.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask to get into this, but since I've experienced it and have some empathy and love for these people, it's made me want to learn more about how to help. And so as I've learned that, I feel like some mental health breakdown's not imminent, but it's possible for any of us.
Sure. Yeah.
Because just like your physical health can erode, your mental health can erode.
That's right.
And I also, though, would tell the man who's listening, who is in the valley right now, to feel like, but you know what? Hope it can also be imminent. And an end to your circumstances can also be imminent. And we use the term hinge moment, which I got from my friend Rob Bell from Fishers.
Oh, yeah. We love Rob. A little call out to Rob Bell. I love that.
Rob taught me about the hinge moment. And so we really teach our kids, like, if you haven't experienced it, you just haven't experienced it yet. But it's still coming, and you prepare and you're ready for your hinge moment when it gets here. Well, when you're in the valley and you are struggling with depression or anxiety, or stress, gosh, if you can just have the courage to just try. I think it's foolish to say we're going to eradicate your fears, or we're going to take away your stress, or don't be stressed. That doesn't even make sense to someone who's feeling that at the time. But if you can just have the courage to go forward despite the presence of your fears, and if you can just have just enough hope to believe that it's even possible, and so you'll try. You'll face the day because you'll try. Just stay in the arena and keep going. And if you feel like you can't, then you've got to reach out to someone to help you do that. That very thing. Just take a step. Just face another day. Just face the circumstances. And if you don't have that hope, you have to lean on the hope they have for you, and believe in the value and love that they have for you, when you can't even see it for yourself. Because the lies that come your way from this world, Satan, whatever it is, will make you feel unworthy of that.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to trust that person that does love you on that level and just stay with them. They'll guide you to that journey of hope, and then eventually, hopefully, you climb back out of that valley, and you get into that belief and faith of the life that God created you for.
Amen.
And I would say one more thing is that when you go through some bad times in life, when you're in that, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. But if you make it out, sometimes you realize like that was the blessing.
Oh, yeah. No
So
doubt.
all this talk about all this circumstances you overcame, your child or whatever, and Erik, I know you went through some really hard times. But think now, like sometimes you wouldn't change it though. Because as hard as it was at the time, maybe you can use that for good. Romans 8:28, and God, works for the good of those who love him. He can weave all things together for good. So that does not mean that I'm making anything light of the tragedy with your brother, Brandon, or what Erik went through, or even what I went through as a kid, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it can be used for good. And so there's hope that even in those circumstances, God can use it for good, even if it doesn't seem it at the time.
Yep.
And when you make it out, sometimes you wouldn't necessarily change because maybe that was actually the blessing, because the amount of people you could connect with, the difference you could make, the impact you could have.
Yep.
If Erik hadn't gone through what he had gone through, then I don't know if he could have that impact with me.
Yeah.
We had a recent tragedy in our area. The first person I reached out to was Erik. Like, I need to help this man.
Yeah.
I need you to help me know how I can help this man, because I care about him. But I need your help, Erik. And when Erik came to that school and he talked, and we did that father-son chili cook-off, there's 3 days later we avoided a suicide because we had that talk.
That's right.
Now, that would not have happened if Erik hadn't have come. But Erik wouldn't have come had he not gone through what he had gone through.
That's right.
And so I know that kid lives today because of what Erik went through.
Right on.
As crazy as that sounds, Erik doesn't even know him. But God can use that negative circumstance in your life for something good down the road, just because you've had that experience.
Yep.
So for all those guys out there listening who are struggling, man, reach out to these guys right here at Finding a Refuge.
Yep.
I just think they're great people. Reach out to them. If not, call that hotline. But there are people out there who can help you.
Yep.
And God can use you.
Amen, man.
I don't know that it's ever been said better.
I agree, and we wouldn't be here right now, Jake, if everything that you just said we weren't like passionate about doing. I mean, the fact that we're just sitting here in this studio today is a testament to what that you just said is a testament to that.
And I do want to emphasize a point that I've already emphasized in this podcast is that comes by that individual making a decision to change.
Yeah.
And so take everything that Jake said and rewind it and listen to it if you have to listen to it over and over again, because I'm telling you that the amount of pain and the stress and everything that we all have been through, I'm humbled by hearing that story. I'm humbled by all that, but you all know where that comes from.
Yep.
And when we can be around a table of guys who ride motorcycles and are football coaches and
rock stars. I mean,
it's
crazy.
Just guys who are just guys who can sit around and talk about that kind of stuff. I'm in all day.
Yeah,
I'm in all day, and that's why we do this. So, man, I cannot. I've been wanting this for a long time.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for what you do in your community, for what you do for those guys on that football team, and ultimately for now. Hopefully, a whole bunch of people are going to hear this. So, thank you, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
Jake,
it.
thank you so much, man. I loved listening to you, man, and I can't wait to get to know you better. I mean, heck,
right.
I didn't know Erik was worried. I can't wait to get Jake in here, And
Well, if there's anyone out there that I can help or wants to contact me, you can find me at Westfield High School. If you call the school, or you can call me directly, 317-625-1722. So if I could be of any service to anybody, just give me a call. I'm
That's
always
fantastic.
on.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I love it, man. Well, thank you very much, buddy. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And we'll hope for the best here in the future.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Building
Jake.
a refuge. Thank you.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thanks, man.
To hold on to. It is well within my soul. Jesus built me a refuge, someplace I can run to, a place we now call home.